It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, talking your property news 7 days a week, is heard on iHeartRadio and Spotify. Yes, I know I sound a little bit different because I'm not feeling the greatest today. It is a Wednesday, October the 8th. Yeah, got one of these nasty viruses that could be COVID. I don't know, but I will find out tomorrow when I test for COVID. I'm one of these people that have never had COVID. You might be the same. We're not really that much of a unicorn when it comes to not having had it. A recent study estimates that about 1 in 10 Australian adults have never been affected. Experts believe that the percentage of people never affected has fallen closer to around 10% of the adult population. So if you are one of those people, well done. I will let you know whether or not I have succumbed finally to COVID. Right, let's now go to, we're going to Queensland, and we are catching up with Sharyn Macaulay from Tom Grady Real Estate, and this is in Gympie. I was telling Sharyn, I think we've spoken about Gympie once before, so Sharyn is going to give us a bit of a lay of the land just in terms of how the property market is going there in Gympie. First off, Sharyn, you've been doing this for a very long time. You were telling me that you moved out of Gympie and you went to a few different locations. I'll get you to tell me where you moved to before eventually coming back.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Craig. Yes, I was raised here in Gympie, and I left when I was in my early 20s and transferred around with the National Bank. Ultimately ended up back in Brisbane again. Found ourselves at Wynnum Manly on the bay side of Brisbane. And that's when I got into real estate, and I sold real estate in that area for around about 14 years. And then 2014, I found myself wanting to come back here and help with the family business here in Gympie, as Tom is my father. I have been back in the area ever since and love it.
Yeah, so it's obviously in the blood. I mean, as you were growing up, it was all about real estate with Tom. You decided to go into the banking sector, but see what happens? Because it's in the blood, you could only do that for so long before you got into real estate.
That's right. I was buying and selling a lot of properties back in the early 2000s, and just found myself over at Wynnum Manly and went, I think I better get myself a real job, because I'd bought quite an expensive property, and that's how I ended up getting into selling real estate myself. I dealt with a lot of interesting real estate agents while I had been buying and selling, and I thought, geez, if they can sell, I'm pretty sure I can. So the rest is history.
Well, we were only just featuring that yesterday morning, talking about if you want to become a real estate agent, and we were talking to a CEO who bought the business. And if you missed that episode and you're wanting to get into real estate, just go back one episode. But that's the thing, is I think a lot of people look at some of these other agents and say to themselves, how on earth are you able to sell real estate? I mean, I know some of these people directly. I won't tell them that, but I do think, how do you sell real estate? Some people, when they see that, they, like you, they say, yeah, I can probably do it, and maybe a better job. So this is a sort of a gateway, isn't it? How people get involved in the first place.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I didn't know that was going to ultimately happen. Mum and Dad have always been in real estate, but I came in through the real estate avenues in a different way slightly. Yeah.
So let's have a look at the median house price, and I can see that it is sitting there at $605,000. The growth in your market, that's nearly 13% that has risen. 23 days on market for the houses, rental yield of 4.6%. So there's a rental yield to be had on those houses. What do you actually get, Sharyn, for $605,000 when it comes to a house for those that have never been to Gympie before?
Well, typically you'd be looking at a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom property for that sort of price, maybe sitting on around about 1,000 square metres.
Yeah, sitting on 1,000 square metres, so that is great. And if you would like to know what the unit price is, the median house price on units, 490,000. There's a bit of movement there, over 18% in the last 12 months. So that is a little bit of a breakdown on the units and the houses. So Sharyn, tell us a little bit about the fact that you guys have been bypassed. Also, let me know how long ago that was and how affected has Gympie been as a result of that?
Yes, well, it had been a long time coming, and we officially were bypassed October in 2024, so just coming up to 12 months now. And look, we didn't know which way that was going to affect us, but when you look regionally around everywhere else, such as Mackay, Rockhampton, Bundaberg, they've all been bypassed. They've all succeeded, thrived, and Gympie is exactly the same. We have definitely seen an improvement, to be honest with you, because people can access Gympie so much easier. Gympie is quite a vast area geographically. So with this highway going through and having these off-ramps means that people are able to access the different parts of Gympie a lot easier than what they had been able to previously. It's been a very big positive for us.
All right, we are talking to Sharyn Macaulay. When we come back, I want a throat lozenge too, so I'll need to take that. I want to talk about the infrastructure and what is happening, and also the location of Gympie to Brisbane. So we'll talk about that after this.
Let's fuel your passion for property together. Join us, along with our industry experts, to help inspire and inform your next real estate decision.
We are focusing on Perth this morning, and Suzanne, it's also a reminder of how fluid this list can be. Karawara dropped off the $1 million club this year. It just goes to show how medians can shift year by year depending on what stock is selling.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's obviously, the median is around the $1 million mark for a lot of these suburbs. And we do see them come and go from the list from time to time. Karawara in particular is quite a diverse suburb with a lot of different housing options, but it's also located quite close to a university. So there is a lot of unit options, and it could be that there was probably more significant sales in the sort of lower price of units than the higher price of houses in that area that bought the median just under the $1 million house price. So it doesn't mean property values are falling. It just means potentially that there was a different type of sale in that area for that time period.
Each week, we bring you in-depth real estate discussions, including inspiring stories from homeowners, knowledgeable real estate professionals and economists. Whether you're a buyer, seller, or just a real estate enthusiast, we are your ultimate property podcast.
All right, now let's talk about the fact that Gympie is reasonably close to Brisbane. What is the drive time? Sorry, Sharyn, you might have mentioned that. What is the drive time between Brisbane and Gympie? And just give us a breakdown on, who is coming into the area and how many of those Brisbane people find it attractive.
Yes, well, with the bypass of Gympie and that new highway, it's made travel time from the Sunshine Coast and Brisbane so much quicker. So we're finding a lot of people coming from Brisbane's sunny coast. Drive time now is around about an hour 45 to Brisbane CBD, just under an hour from Maroochydore. So it's definitely helped us, real estate wise. People can see that they can actually drive from the Sunshine Coast, live here in Gympie and drive to their jobs on the Sunshine Coast, and the same into Brisbane as well, because we are the last train line as well. Gympie North train station is the last train line on the city trains from Brisbane. That's also a huge bonus that we have here in Gympie.
So just tell us a little bit about the block factor. Somebody wanting maybe a larger block. They don't want to be so close to other neighbours. So is that a bit of a factor where you say they're moving from the Sunshine Coast and also Brisbane?
Oh my goodness, yes. Like down in Manly, I was selling blocks of 4 or 5 square metres. Up here in Gympie, you can buy 1,000 square metres quite reasonably priced. And it goes up from there. You can have 1 acre, 5 acres, 10 acres. Yeah, people are just loving the lifestyle. The kids have got room, they've got space, they can put a pool in, they've got man sheds, they've got all their toys. It's all on their property, and it's all still affordable here in Gympie. That's the thing. We are seeing the prices rise, but it is all still affordable, and that's what people are loving.
Okay, so give us a little bit of a cost breakdown. You mentioned 1 acre and 5 acres. If somebody is wanting to build their dream property, how much are those two sizes going to set you back?
Oh, if you're just after a 1 acre vacant block of land, I must say, which is hard to find, we are opening up more subdivisions at the moment. You're going to be looking around about the 300,000 mark.
And what about the 5 acres?
The 5 acre lots, depending on the location, east of Gympie towards Rainbow Beach and Tincan Bay, you're going to be looking at around about the 500,000. If you're on the western side of Gympie, more towards Gameri, Kilkeven, so the western side of the highway, they're cheaper lots over there because it is dry land. So you might be able to pick that up for 400.
I would imagine that one of the things that you get asked all the time is covenants, how many covenants are on a particular block of land. I'm guessing that a lot of these blocks don't have any covenants.
That's right. Yeah, there's really not too many covenants to be heard of here in our Gympie estates. There's some more the residential properties that, that are on what we call the south side of Gympie. Some of those residential estates that are on 600 square metres, they've got some covenants. But generally speaking, no. The ones that are on your larger blocks of land, your 1 to 5 acres, there's no covenants.
I remember when I was living on the Gold Coast and I was travelling north, I used to stop at Gympie. There was a newly built shopping type of mini plaza. I'm going back to 2007 when I was doing that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Yes, at Centro.
I think that was fairly new back in 2007, was it?
Yeah, it was probably built about 2003 from memory. I might be a little bit out there.
And just on that subject about infrastructure, what is actually happening around Gympie, especially for those people that are thinking, just how many services do they actually have?
Yeah, well, our population here is 55,000 people. So we are a city. We've got all the modern conveniences, your Bunnings, your KFCs, all that sort of thing. There's also infrastructure west of us here, that's large solar farms, and south of us at Imbil is the Barumba Dam. And the Barumba Dam is earmarked to have a hydro system installed. So that's going to bring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs to the region here. So there's two pretty big things happening there. And then with that bypass as well, that brought in a lot of employment at that stage too. And that was another reason why we saw the growth of Gympie that we did, because people were working on that for so many years.
All right then, Sharyn, good stuff. Thank you for bearing with me this morning. We have never missed a morning's podcast. So far, that record is still intact after about 4.5 years. And all the best there in Gympie. And thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
Thank you, Craig. It's been a pleasure.
Listen to in-depth discussions with industry leaders on investing options, understanding different suburbs with insider perspectives and exclusive tips.
We arrive at a moment in an auction that we normally wouldn't be at. The idea of the heart pounding and the adrenaline rushing. They've explored their financial options and their ceilings and where they want to ideally spend.
And there is this sort of perceived, if you like, FOMO starting to creep back in. Like, the market is starting to turn. I've got to buy. And that can also lead to problems when you're at the auction.
Yes, I think everyone arrives at an auction if they're intending to bid, wanting to stay calm and confident. As I said, it's such an unusual situation that many people don't find themselves in on a regular basis. So keeping those nerves in check and keeping the head cool and clear can be a struggle. Key to it, having some sort of connection with your agent.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.